Hi and welcome. This is Homebody Rundown and I'm HR. This is week 5 of a 6-week pantry challenge, and my goal has been to primarily use food items that we have already in our house in the refrigerators, pantry, and freezers. I am going to the grocery store every week to just buy a few essentials, primarily produce, dairy, and eggs. And we eat a mostly pescatarian diet, so that's for us vegetarian with seafood. I don't think I'm making any seafood though this week. Youngest child does eat meat, but we usually just make that on the side or they make it on their own, so you won't see any of that in this week's video. These chickpeas have been soaking overnight, so I am going to drain them, rinse them, and get them into the Instant Pot, which, if you're not familiar, this is a pressure cooker. So I'm going to add in new water, enough to cover the chickpeas. And they do have to cook for quite a while, even though they've been soaked, but it does reduce the time somewhat. These are done cooking, so I'm going to pull some out to keep in the refrigerator. The rest, once they're cooled, I'm going to get into jars and put in the freezer to use in the future. And when I freeze them, I do add some of the liquid in there as well, because if I'm making hummus with these, I want that liquid. It's the weekend and I wasn't planning to cook, but my stomach has been queasy for like 3 days. Not really serious, just annoying. So some soup sounded good, and I had all of these carrots, some that had kind of gotten a little dry, and then just a huge bag. So I wanted to boil these or cook them and get them in the freezer and in the refrigerator, but I thought I would go ahead and make some soup with some of these carrots. To the soup, I was going to add some noodles, and I had a bunch of these shells, so I'm getting about 2 cups out. This container is Cambro brand, and I really like these. So this is the water that the carrots cooked in. It did have some salt in there. And I'm adding in vegetable broth powder, minced dried onions, paprika, oregano, celery seed. This is roasted garlic powder. Vegetarian chicken flavored bouillon cube that has quite a bit of sodium in it. And I'm adding in more water, and I'll have to keep adding in water. These are tomatoes that were in the freezer. I think we were going out of town and I didn't want them to go bad, so I just chopped them up quick and put them in the freezer. So getting those in there with some red pepper flakes. The water was hot, boiling, so I added in the pasta and adding in more water because it keeps boiling down. Added the carrots at the end because the carrots were already pretty soft from cooking earlier. Added part of the chickpeas that I had in the refrigerator and frozen spinach just because this was looking so orange and I just needed some contrast. And of course, I'm sure it's very good for me. Here's my bowl. I added Parmesan on top, and this was really good. It had a lot of flavor. Of course, it was a pretty strong carrot flavor. This is a good pantry challenge lunch. The roasted red peppers and the tuna are both from the pantry. Getting the tuna and the peppers into a bowl, and I'm going to add some Greek yogurt. I only have fat-free, so that's what I'm using, and mayonnaise. Adding in salt, black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. Normally, I like to add cucumber to a tuna sandwich, but don't have any of that, and I'm grateful that I have so many of these roasted red peppers. I've used them quite a bit over this pantry challenge. And also, we're almost out of regular bread, so I toasted a bun, which was in the freezer, and that makes for a good enough bread to make a tuna fish sandwich. We ran out of white rice in the pantry, And I am getting into some white rice that I put into long-term food storage. I did this back at the beginning of the pandemic. I realized I didn't have enough staples in the house, uh, for a long period of time if we couldn't get to the store. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I think I figured out how to do this safely. So this is white rice, and it's not the normal rice I buy. This was cheaper bags, large bags of rice from Sam's Club. But I'm checking it now. I smelled it. It seems fine. So I'm rinsing it off, rinsing it pretty well. And then I'm going to cook this in the Instant Pot. And I decided to try seasoning this rice with some bouillon. I don't think I've ever done this before. I usually just stick to plain salted rice because of picky eaters, and I make rice a lot when the kids have had friends over, and it's just more of a crowd pleaser and easier to use up if it's plain. But I'm going to add in a vegetarian chicken flavored bouillon cube and a garden veggie bouillon cube, black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and get that cooking in the Instant Pot. And the reason I want the rice for dinner tonight is I wanted to make some kind of faux or vegetarian beef and rice recipe. It just sounded good. These are 2 vegetarian Beyond brand burgers that I am cooking in the frying pan. Getting the seasonings ready here. I'm using some mushroom umami seasoning from Trader Joe's, white pepper, black pepper, parsley, garlic powder, onion powder. And when it's almost done, I'll add in some nutritional yeast, adding red onions, the seasonings, and use the meat masher thing to chop up the burgers. And cooking them on a fairly high heat. They're getting some brownness on the bottom, which is good. Okay, this did not work at all. This looks so ridiculous. I just thought that the bouillon cubes would, I don't know, dissolve and distribute better, and they just didn't. So it was very hard to try to stir that bouillon around. It really did not work. Anyway, got a little distracted. This got a little well done. I was doing math with youngest child. We do homeschool, but it's not burned. And I'm adding some flour, water, and milk to make a sauce or gravy. Frozen green peas, just to have a veggie in here. And you can see that liquid is really pulling up all the brown bits off the bottom. So it should just be extra flavor. Added that nutritional yeast, and I don't know. This is different rice, like I mentioned, so it was really sticky. I guess I need to modify the time. It's just didn't cook the way the rice I normally buy cooks. Finishing this with Parmesan cheese. This is grated Parmesan cheese. And I didn't add too much. I mean, you could always make it cheesier, and I'm sure it would taste even better, but just to be a little healthier, I don't go crazy on the cheese usually. It was pretty good. It wasn't great, but it was pretty good. Here are the groceries that I picked up this week. The orange juice is from Sam's Club and the rest is from Costco. Those oranges were amazing. The total is $45.93. I had been running errands all day. I had gone and gotten those groceries, among other things. So I just didn't have much energy for dinner tonight. I am making pasta, and I got out angel hair pasta because it was already a little late, and I know this cooks quickly. I forgot how quickly it cooks. It's amazing. I mean, it only took 4 minutes to cook, and it was wonderful. It tasted great, and I need to buy more angel hair pasta. It's so much faster than spaghetti. I think the organic spaghetti I get at Costco takes about 17 minutes when I do the full pound of pasta. I did do one more thing on this night, and that was get out some beans to soak them. This is pinto beans and lima beans, and I order both of these in bulk from Azure Standard. It's the next day, and I'm going to make hummus with the chickpeas or garbanzo beans that I had in the refrigerator. And you can see I did save some of that cooking liquid in with them, but I will probably add water. I usually do need to add some water when I'm making hummus. Adding cumin, lemon juice, and I have been using roasted garlic powder, salt, and tahini. And you can see here the tahini does separate, so I like to use a butter knife to mix those back together, the oil and the sesame seed paste part. Getting that into this little blender or this little food processor. It works well. It's by Braun, but I would not recommend it. I find there aren't really like grips on the side to get the top off. You see here, it's kind of hard to get the top off and back on to get it lined up and on correctly. But you can put the whole thing in the dishwasher, which I really like. Well, obviously, I mean not the motor part. Tasted it, needed more seasoning. I did add a little water to this and more lemon juice, tahini, garlic powder. And then I just process it until it gets to the consistency that we like. Keep this in the refrigerator, and this is a good amount for us for about a week or so. The lima beans are rinsed and in the Instant Pot with clean water. Here they are after they've cooked, and I have not perfected cooking lima beans. Some of these are perfect and some of them are a little too mushy, and I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into it, but they taste amazing, but I'm a huge lima bean fan. The pinto beans, though, I'm pretty good at pinto beans. I've been doing this I used to cook pinto beans before there were Instant Pots. I used just a regular stovetop pressure cooker to do it. So probably a good 15 years. And I gotta say though, the Instant Pot is so much better, so much easier, and safer, honestly. So I add lime juice to these, onion powder, garlic powder, and I take out some of the cooking liquid and I will add it back in if these set up too thickly. So with all of those beans, I am doing a bunch of quesadilla food prep. I'm cooking some for youngest child. She likes hers with mozzarella cheese. And then I am prepping a bunch to freeze and take to our oldest two kids who are off at college. They're at the same college, and we're going to go see them this weekend. So I thought I would just get these prepped. I'm not going to cook them. They'll just be ready to go with cheese, corn, and the refried beans. I put them in little waxed paper snack bags and put them into plastic bags. And I'm hoping that way they won't all freeze together and they'll be able to pull them out one at a time to defrost. And the tortillas and both kinds of cheese and the corn were all from the freezer. So you can see here, these beans have cooled completely and they're very thick. So I will add a little more liquid to these beans that are left, and then I'll put these in the freezer to use in the future. And then I am going to save the rest of that bean liquid. I don't always do that, but once in a while I will use this to make a soup. So instead of dumping it, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the freezer. It is cooled down now. And I have to say, pantry challenge, I make a more variety of food usually when I do a pantry challenge, and I really appreciate having a dishwasher because I create a lot of dishes. Okay, this is not really much of a pantry challenge meal. I mean, the peppers and the coleslaw I have bought during pantry challenge, but all the seasonings and spices, the maple syrup that's in that jar with the gray lid, and the frozen peas, those I did already have. So I'm using up this cabbage to make a salad because I don't want it to go bad. It doesn't last a super long time usually once you've opened the bag. In the measuring cup I have ginger, powdered garlic. I'm adding rice vinegar, soy sauce, sesame or toasted sesame oil, and some maple syrup to sweeten it, just to make a quick dressing to put onto this veggie salad thing. If I had sesame seeds, I would definitely add those, but I don't, so I will just chop up some cashews and add those over the top. I have roasted salted cashews. And then we do have lots of sauces if, the dressing isn't as sweet as we want it to be. This was really good. The cashews were really good on it. If I had fresh cilantro, that would have been amazing. To go along with the salad, I'm also making a stir fry. This is broccoli from the freezer, the last bag I had. I think it's a 1-pound bag of frozen broccoli florets. Adding in some diced red onion, ginger, this is frozen ginger that's defrosted, and the last green pepper. Had this organic marinated tofu that I have not tried before, but I wanted to use it up. So I put it in this frying pan with avocado oil and toasted sesame oil, and after it's cooked for a little while, I'll add this Japanese barbecue sauce. Cooking this at a pretty high heat, adding in some garlic powder and rice wine vinegar. This is oyster sauce. This stuff is super salty, and so is this Japanese sauce. So I didn't want to add too much because it is so salty. And at this point, this is looking really good, and I turned off the heat because I totally forgot I wanted to add in some of the angel hair pasta that I made the night before to fill this out or make it more filling. So I did turn the heat back on and stirred in the pasta for a couple minutes. Stirring the tofu now, and it's getting some really nice color on here. And you can see here, those little crispy bits are very good on the edges. Added some of that Japanese barbecue sauce. I'm not a huge fan of this sauce. It was on sale and I thought I'd try it, but I think I just prefer making sauces just to taste whatever I'm feeling like that day. But it's not bad. The marinated tofu, though, was wonderful. This was really good, but it is pricey. So here's my bowl. I got out peanut sauce and sriracha. I only added sriracha, but I also put some on the salad as well. And this was a really good dinner. Now, the salad is not going to last very long since it already has the dressing on it. The stir fry had a great flavor. I mean, the noodles would have been better if they had cooked with the veggies for a little longer, but it tasted wonderful, especially the tofu. And I did add a few more of those chopped cashews onto the stir fry as well. Today I am making something new, and I hope I say this right, or close, shakshuka. It is eggs in a tomato pepper sauce, and I read about it in the Milk Street cookbook, and I will link that below. You probably can't find their recipe online. It's probably behind a paywall, but the cookbook is wonderful. And because I had planned to make this a while ago when I read the recipe, I picked up this harissa, I hope that's correct, paste. It's red pepper paste or sauce, and I picked that up before Pantry Challenge. And I have never used it or bought it before, and it smells wonderful, and I gave this a taste and it's amazing. However, it is very pricey, so I may look into how to make it myself, which would probably be cheaper. So I'm adding some of that to this pan with olive oil, red onions, roasted red peppers, and I did add an ingredient that's not in the recipe, and that's roasted garlic. Added salt and pepper, and I've just been letting this simmer and just get some of that extra liquid out for a while, maybe about 10-15 minutes. I did not follow the recipe in the Milk Street book. I just have the ingredients, so it's just inspired by their recipe, but I am not making exactly what they did in the book, which I'm sure would be even better. I'm also making a smaller amount. I used less tomato and I'm only doing 4 eggs. Sprinkled over some cilantro that I got out of the freezer, and I think you're supposed to leave the eggs kind of runny, but not everyone in the house is a fan of that, so I am cooking these and just until they're soft set, I would call it. And then I also had feta cheese I got out of the freezer, sprinkled that over the top and let it warm through. This was really good. I mean, I was surprised at how much I liked it. The cilantro was really wonderful, but this pepper tomato sauce is fantastic. I did not use any bread or toast, but to dip some bread in that sauce would also be really good. Also on this day, I want to make some strawberry shortcakes. So these are frozen strawberries from Costco. I had them defrosting in the refrigerator overnight. So they were soft enough that I could take the meat masher thing and chop them somewhat. I added a little water to this pan. And when I was chopping those, they weren't hot yet. I wasn't going to get splattered with, boiling water or anything. So I never even boiled these. I just added sugar and let that dissolve, gave it a taste, and it was wonderful. Now I'm going to make the shortcakes, but first I am going to try to make whipped cream from frozen cream. And I am pretty positive I have tried to do this before. Sometimes, I have a large container of cream and I don't want it to go bad, so I'll put some in the freezer. And I feel like in the past it doesn't work great, but beggars can't be choosers. I do not have any cream in the house, or any fresh cream, so this is what we're going to try. I added fourfold vanilla and powdered sugar, and you can see here there's texture in it. And also, it took forever to get it to even have this much of a whipped consistency, so it's not ideal. I guess I'd describe it, it's not really grainy because it's not anything hard in there. There's just little soft bits of cream, I guess. And it tastes great. It's just the texture is slightly off. But it'll do. And youngest child tried it and said it was just fine. And plus, I'll use it in my coffee and it'll melt, so it'll be perfect. I'm going to make the shortcakes in here, and I reminded myself last week when I made some really flat biscuits, but that I should have used my food processor with the dough blade. But I forgot, so I'm using the mixer. I had just rinsed out the whipped cream from the bowl, dried it, and now I'm mixing up the shortcakes in here. You do have to cut in the shortening, and this dough hook did not do a good job doing that. I thought it was worth a try. It did okay. Added in the milk, and it does a great job on that part of just kneading the stuff together, but you can see there's some large pieces of fat still showing through. But I'm not too worried about it. I am going to try to roll these not as thin as I did the biscuits last week, but those were regular biscuits. These are shortcakes. These may have a little more baking powder in them. I said about 1/2 inch. I think I still got them a little too thin. Yeah, I don't think that's 1/2 inch. But it's okay. I cook them for less than the time said because I know my oven is hot, and they still got very brown. They're not burned, but they're toasty. Because we are going to go see the boys this weekend, I wanted to make up a large batch of pancakes so I could freeze some and take them up there to where they are at school. And I am thinking ahead and making some whole milk from whole milk powder that I have. So I use the blender, add the powder and the water, and the blender does a great job. There are no lumps in it. So I got this mixed up and I'll put it in the refrigerator so I have it tomorrow and I don't use the more expensive fresh milk that we get at Costco. Plus, that milk is lactose free and I don't need that for making pancakes. And here I am making the pancakes. Got out the ingredients. I kind of follow my own recipe. I use maple syrup instead of sugar. and I'll put a similar recipe down below. I kind of do my own thing, but I put all of the dry ingredients in first, which normally I do the liquid stuff, but whatever. I usually end up just putting everything in and then mixing it, which is probably not ideal, but it's fine. This is 3 cast iron skillets, and I just do 1 pancake in each pan. I find that they just cook better when they're centered in the pan. These are also fairly large pancakes. If you were making smaller ones, it would make sense to put more in each pan. I do add butter between each pancake, but I have done just oil or spray oil in the past. The butter gives a nice little crispy edge sometimes, which is delicious. And I have these cooling so I can make sure they're all the way cooled down before I package them. I'm going to take most of these to the boys so they can defrost these at college when they want a quick breakfast. Using the same pans to pre-cook a bunch of burgers for the boys as well, and I learned my lesson. Do not put anything frozen into an already hot cast iron pan. It will splatter everywhere. So I let the pans cool down before I added the frozen patties. This is the shortcake dessert. I just warmed up the shortcake, broke it into pieces, added some of the strawberry topping that's been in the refrigerator, as well as this very soft or liquidy whipped cream. And it was wonderful. It was a really nice treat to have in the cold of winter. Another item that is wonderful to eat on a cold day are warm cookies. I am making up peanut butter cookies and will take most of these to the boys up at college. They both really love peanut butter cookies. So I am running low on butter, but this only takes a 1/4 cup or half of a stick of butter, so I figured this was a good option. Earlier this morning, I prepped all the ingredients and got the butter out, so it's been sitting on the counter for a few hours, coming to room temperature, so it's soft now. I've also microwaved this in the past if I don't have time for that. And this recipe I will link below. I follow it exactly, unless I on occasion will replace some of the all-purpose flour with whole wheat, but I did not do that this time. Anyway, it only uses 1 1/4 cup of flour, so it doesn't make a large quantity of cookies. Just getting these scooped after they have been refrigerated. I only did about an hour. I think the recipe says a couple hours. I roll them by hand to get a nice round shape and then dip them in sugar, using a fork to put a crosshatch pattern on the top. This is what my mom always did, so it's what I do. And most importantly, I try to get them all to about the same thickness so they'll all bake in the same amount of time or evenly bake. And I've been over baking things lately, so I maybe could have let these go another minute. I think I was just paranoid that they were going to get too brown. So they were very soft and very delicious. With not feeling great towards the beginning of the week, I did not make all of the things that I had planned on, but still had a lot of good food. I really liked the soup at the beginning of the week. The stir fry with that marinated tofu was great. My husband really liked the salad I made along with that. And we all enjoyed the strawberry shortcake. It was very good. I know the boys will appreciate the pancakes and burgers and cookies that we'll take up to them this weekend. We were able to use up a lot of items that we already had in the house, so a very good week. And looking forward to next week. As always, thanks for watching.